You hear Greeks fought Persians at Marathon, Sandals versus Empire. Maybe you think hoplites stood in line and won by default. The truth sits harder. September 12th, 490 BCE. 25,000 Persian infantry step off 600 ships onto a coastal plain 26 miles north of Athens. They bring archers, Sakai veterans from the eastern steppes, Ionian conscripts who know Greek tactics, and 1,000 cavalry trained to circle and slaughter infantry from behind. The Athenians send 10,000 men and beg Plataea for help. 1,000 Plataean hoplites march, 11,000 Greeks total. Sparta promises troops after a religious festival ends in 6 days. 6 days the Athenians do not have. One man stands between this force and Athens burning. His name is Miltiades. He knows Persians because he served them. In 513 BCE, King Darius ordered him to guard a bridge over the Danube during the Scythian campaign. Miltiades learned Persian cavalry maneuvers, Persian archery ranges, Persian command structures. In 499, when Ionian cities revolted, Miltiades joined the rebellion and fled his holdings in the Thracian Chersonese before Persian fleets arrived. He hates Persians. He knows how they fight. And on September 12th, when other Athenian generals vote to wait for Sparta behind Athens' weak walls, Miltiades argues they march now to Marathon's plain and block the two exits before cavalry can fan out. Pheidippides covers 240 kilometers in 2 days over mountains and rocky paths. He reaches Sparta and delivers the message. Spartans say they will march after their festival. Full moon. 6 more days. Pheidippides runs back. That run was real. Herodotus, writing 30 years after Marathon, names him. The run from Marathon to Athens after the battle, the one where he shouts victory and dies. That comes from Plutarch, 500. Years later, it names a different man. Maybe Euclides, maybe Thersippus. Historians argue. The Spartathlon ultramarathon today follows Pheidippides' actual route, 246 kilometers, and runners finish it. Back then, it saved nothing. Sparta was not coming in time. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. Also, this script is researched and factual, using sources from Herodotus's histories written around 440 BCE based on eyewitness accounts, the archaeological excavations of the Marathon tumulus by Valerio Stais in 1891, which confirmed cremated remains and Persian burial pits discovered by Hauptmann Eschenberg in 1885, and modern battlefield and analysis published by Nick Secunda in his 2010 Osprey volume Marathon 490 BC, which synthesizes topographic evidence with ancient accounts. These are not generic references. Stays found 30 black figure leucithoi and cremated bone fragments at 3 meters depth inside the Soros, the burial mound that still stands 9 meters tall. Eschenberg found mass graves with hundreds of bodies buried without ceremony, which matches Persian. Exposure practices, making this a rushed Greek burial of enemy dead. Now back to the information. Hippias wants that power back. Darius wants Athens punished for burning Sardis during the Ionian revolt in 498. 20 Athenian ships sailed east, joined Ionian rebels, torched the Persian regional capital, then fled. Darius supposedly shot an arrow at the sky and made a servant remind him daily, "Remember the Athenians." This expedition answers that arrow. Both sides know the problem. Greek hoplites wear bronze cuirasses or layered linen, bronze greaves, Corinthian or Attic helmets, carry 8-foot spears and heavy round shields faced with bronze. Persian infantry wear padded linen or scale cuirasses on leather, carry wicker and leather shields, use short spears or swords, and rely on massed archery. Persian cavalry is the killer. On open ground, mounted archers circle infantry, shoot from distance, break formations, and ride down scattered men. The Marathon plain offers perfect cavalry terrain, flat, wide, no obstacles. If Greeks march down, cavalry surrounds them and archers kill them before they close. Stalemate. Datis and Artaphernes, the Persian commanders, know this. Modern historians debate what breaks the deadlock. The Suda, a 10th century Byzantine lexicon, preserves a phrase without cavalry. It says, Ionian soldiers, Greeks conscripted into the Persian army, climbed trees and signaled the Athenians that the cavalry left camp. Why cavalry left is disputed. Some think they boarded ships to sail around Cape Sunion and strike Athens from the rear, while the infantry pinned Greeks at Marathon. Others think they moved north for better grazing. A third theory says they were inside camp at night and could not deploy at dawn. Herodotus does not mention the cavalry's location, but the Stoa Poikile painting in Athens, now lost, showed Persian cavalry at Marathon, confirming they fought in some phase. On the morning Greeks attack, cavalry is absent or not deployed. Miltiades sees the gap. He orders the charge. First, deployment. Callimachus commands the right wing, the position of honor. The 10 Athenian tribal regiments spread across the center. Plataeans hold the left wing. Standard Greek phalanx is 8 men deep. Miltiades thins the center to 4 ranks and strengthens the wings to 8 or more. The line stretches to match Persian width, roughly 1 mile. If Persians overlap Greek flanks, they envelop and destroy them. Miltiades cannot allow that. The thinned center is deliberate. Best Persian troops, Persians and Sakai, deploy in their center. Miltiades knows they will push through the weak Greek middle he wants them to. At around 400 meters from the Persian line, Miltiades orders the run. Herodotus calls this suicidal madness from the Persian perspective. Greeks charge at a sprint in full armor. Why run? Persian archers need time to shoot multiple volleys. Arrows are light, designed to wound unarmored troops or horses. Against bronze cuirasses and layered linen, they penetrate poorly. A slow march gives archers maybe 150 arrows per man. A fast sprint cuts that to 30 or 40. Greeks minimize exposure. They also maintain formation. Herodotus says the center retreated in order. Low casualties in the first phase support this. The phalanx does not shatter during the charge. Meanwhile, the Persian center, packed with veteran Sakai and Persian infantry, smashes into the thinned Greek center. 4 ranks cannot hold 8 or 10. The Athenian center gives ground, retreats towards Mesogaea, but holds formation. The Persian center pushes forward, thinking they are winning. This is the trap. Greek wings, having routed their opponents, wheel inward. They do not pursue fleeing Persians towards the ships. They turn 90 degrees and hit the Persian center from both sides, double envelopment. The Persian center, crowded and compressed, suddenly faces Greeks from 3 directions: front, left, right. Panic. Herodotus counts 6,400 Persian bodies on the field. Some historians note 6,400 is 33.33 times 192, suspiciously neat, possibly inflated. But Hauptmann-Eschenberg's 1884 excavation found mass graves with hundreds of bodies. The Persians lost heavily. Greek losses, 192 Athenians, 11 Plataeans. Among the dead, Callimachus, the war archon, Stesilaos, one of the 10 generals, Cynaegirus, brother of the playwright Aeschylus, who grabbed a Persian ship's stern ornament and had his hand cut off with an axe. The names were recorded on stone. 192 is probably exact. Miltiades anticipates this. He orders the army to march back to Athens immediately. 11,000 men, exhausted in bronze and linen armor, march 26 miles in one afternoon. They arrive late afternoon, in time to see Persian ships offshore at Phaleron, Athens port. The Athenian army stands ready. Datis sees troops on the shore, realizes Athens is defended, and orders the fleet to retreat to Asia. 2 days later, 2,000 Spartans arrive, apologize for the delay, view the Persian corpses, congratulate Athens, and march home. Persian wicker shields are lighter, easier to carry, worse at stopping spear thrusts. Greek armor, whether bronze, cuirass, or layered linen glued and pressed, stops arrows at close range. Persians rely on archery to weaken formations before contact. When Greeks close fast, archery loses effectiveness. The phalanx, men pressing shoulder to shoulder, 8 deep, becomes a battering ram. Rear ranks shove front ranks forward. Individuals cannot retreat. The mass moves as one. Persians fight as skirmishers and cavalry archers. On open ground with cavalry, they dominate. On narrow ground without cavalry, hoplites dominate. This is the same tactic Hannibal uses at Cannae, 216 BCE, 274 years later. Some historians think Miltiades did not plan it, that the center just happened to break and the wings just happened to turn inward. The evidence suggests otherwise. Miltiades served under Darius in 513. He saw Persian tactics. He knew their center was strong, and their flanks were mixed conscripts and weaker troops. He deliberately thinned his center and loaded his wings. When the center retreated in order without shattering, that indicates discipline and planning. The wings wheeling inward instead of pursuing indicates command and control. This was not luck. This was generalship. Darius expanded into Thrace and forced Macedon to submit. The Ionian revolt of 499 to 494 failed. Eretria, which sent 5 ships to help Ionian rebels, fell in 6 days to Persian siege in 490, betrayed by 2 citizens. Persians deported the population to Mesopotamia. Athens expected the same. Instead, 11,000 Greeks killed 6,000 Persians and drove the fleet away. Word spreads. If Athens can beat Persia, others can too. The Greeks unite. Sparta leads. Thermopylae holds for 3 days. Leonidas and 300 Spartans die buying time. Athens evacuates. Xerxes burns the city. Then Salamis. Themistocles, an Athenian admiral, lures the Persian fleet into narrow waters. Greek triremes ram and sink Persian ships. Xerxes retreats. 479, Plataea. Greeks crush the remaining Persian land army. Persia never invades Greece again. Marathon is the first crack. It shows Persia bleeds. It gives Greeks the nerve to stand at Thermopylae, to fight at Salamis, to finish it at Plataea. Without Marathon, maybe Athens surrenders. Maybe no one resists. The battle changes Greek psychology. They bury the 192 dead on the battlefield, not in the Kerameikos cemetery in Athens. This is unusual. Marathon dead get special honor. The Soros, the burial mound, rises 10 meters tall, 50 meters diameter. Inside, cremated bones, lekythoi, vases. Astele lists the names. Pausanias, writing 600 years later, says Athenians worshipped the Marathon dead as heroes. An inscription from the Hellenistic period confirms ephebes, young men in military training, performed rites at the tomb. The dead became demigods. They dedicate a statue of Iris or Nike on the Acropolis in honor of Callimachus. Miltiades becomes famous. The next spring, 489, he leads an expedition to conquer Aegean islands that sided with Persia. He besieges Paros. During the siege, he is wounded. The attack fails. He returns to Athens. His rivals, the Alcmaeonid family, prosecute him for the failure. He is fined. He dies shortly after from the wound. His glory lasts 6 months, but Marathon lasts forever. Plutarch and Lucian, writing centuries later, conflate the Athens to Sparta run with a supposed Marathon to Athens run and add the death. The modern Marathon, established for the first Olympics in Athens in 1896, uses the Marathon to Athens distance, roughly 40 kilometers. Michel Breal, a French delegate, proposes the race. Spiridon Louis, a Greek water carrier, wins it. The modern marathon has nothing to do with Pheidippides. The Spartathlon Ultramarathon, 246 kilometers from Athens to Sparta, honors the real run. He found cremated remains 3 meters below the surface, 30 lekythoi, vases dated to the early 5th century. He confirmed the tumulus is the genuine tomb. A second tumulus, the Plataean tomb, sits nearby. It is smaller, around 3 meters tall. Spiridon Marinatos excavated it in 1970. He found inhumed bodies. Plataeans were buried differently than Athenians, who were cremated. The Persians were buried in a ditch without monument, hurried and unmarked, found by Eschenberg. That the Greeks buried enemy dead at all is unusual. Greeks normally left corpses to rot or burn. Persians exposed their dead. Burying them was a Greek piety that would have shocked Persians. When Ionian signaled the cavalry was gone, he attacked instantly. He used terrain, the marsh blocking Persian retreat and channeling them towards the shore. He used speed, the charge cutting arrow volleys. He used deception, the weak center drawing Persian strength forward while the strong wings waited. He used discipline, the phalanx holding formation under pressure. He used psychology, choosing to fight rather than cower. And he used knowledge, his experience with Persian forces in Scythia, teaching him where Persians were strong and where they were weak. They were citizens fighting for their own land, their own homes, their own freedom. That motivation, paired with superior close combat equipment and tactics adapted to terrain, beat a larger, more experienced, better supplied imperial army. The lesson echoes. Thermopylae, 300 Spartans, hold a pass against thousands. Salamis Greek triremes sink Persian galleys. Plataea Greek hoplites destroy the Persian camp. Every time, Greeks use terrain, tactics, and citizen morale to counter Persian numbers and resources. Littered the field, the mass grave of enemy dead, the stele, the rites, the memory, all of it, says Greeks can fight empires and win. John Stuart Mill, the British philosopher, wrote that Marathon was more important for British history than the Battle of Hastings. His logic? If Persia conquered Greece, Greek culture dies. No Greek influence on Rome, no Roman law and government, no foundation for European development. Maybe hyperbole, maybe not. The battle lasts hours. The deaths, 203 Greeks, 6,400 Persians, maybe more drowned in the marsh. The march back to Athens, 26 miles in one afternoon. The Persian ships appearing at Phaleron, seeing Greek troops turning away. All of this happens September 12th, 490 BCE. One day, one decision. One charge across a plain where the morning started with 25,000 Persians and 11,000 Greeks facing each other and ended with Greeks standing over enemy corpses and Persia sailing home defeated for the first time. German commanders studied it. At Tannenberg in 1914, Germans encircled Russian forces using the same principle: strong flanks, weak center, envelopment. At Cannae, Hannibal's cavalry and infantry surrounded 8 Roman legions and killed 50,000. Double envelopment works when the enemy commits their strength to the center and flanks can move freely. Miltiades invented it, or at least demonstrated it, at Marathon. Athens honors him, then prosecutes him, then buries him on the Marathon plain near the Soros, as Pausanias records. His grave became a landmark. Travelers visited it. The fame lasted. The man died young, wounded, fined, bitter. But the victory at Marathon made Athens believe it could lead Greece. 10 years later, Themistocles convinces Athens to build a navy. That navy wins at Salamis. Without the confidence from Marathon, maybe Athens does not build that fleet. Maybe Persia wins in 480. History turns on moments. Marathon is one of them. Salamis shows Greek ships can outmaneuver Persian numbers in narrow waters. Plataea shows Greek hoplites can break Persian infantry on land. All three battles use the Marathon lesson. Use terrain, use tactics, use motivation. The Spartans at Thermopylae hold a mountain pass where Persian numbers mean nothing. The Athenians at Salamis lure Persians into straits where Greek triremes can ram and sink enemy ships one by one. The combined Greek army at Plataea fights on ground that negates cavalry advantage and lets hoplites close and kill. The Soros rises on the plain. The names go on stone. The rites begin. The memory hardens into myth. And Persia learns that Greeks, when cornered, do not kneel. They charge. Subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. These sources are not summaries. Stays published his findings in 1892 in the Ephemeris Archaeologique, the official archaeological journal of the Greek Archaeological Society. He described finding cremated bone fragments mixed with ash, 30 black glazed lekythoi dated to circa 490 BCE based on pottery styles, and the layer of earth 3 meters deep covering the burial pit. Eschenberg's report from 1885 documented a trench containing hundreds of human bones, without grave goods or ceremony, identified as Persian based on location and treatment. Secunda's 2010 volume includes topographic maps showing the marsh's exact location, sight lines from Greek positions in the foothills, and the 2-kilometer distance Greeks charged before. Contact. Now back to the information. Lucian, also 5 centuries later, combines the stories and calls the runner Philippides. Robert Browning, in 1879, writes a poem combining all versions, calling him Pheidippides. The poem becomes legend. Michel Borel proposes the marathon race for the Olympics. The modern marathon is born, 42.195 kilometers, marathon to Athens. The race honors a run that probably never happened. The real run, Athens to Sparta, 240 kilometers, gets the Spartathlon, an ultramarathon few people know about. History and myth blur. Before full moon, Sparta said they would march after full moon. The timeline fits, the Soros exists, the bones were found, the Persian grave exists, Eschenberg saw it, the victory column once stood on the plain, fragments now in the Archaeological Museum of Marathon. The bronze helmet Miltiades dedicated is in Olympia. The inscription reads, Miltiades dedicated this to Zeus. Physical evidence confirms the story. Marathon happened. The details are debated, cavalry location, exact numbers, who gave the order to charge, but the outcome is clear. Greeks won. Persians lost. Persia's first invasion of mainland Greece failed at Marathon. Athens builds the Delian League, an alliance of Greek cities to counter Persia. Athens collects tribute. Athens builds the Parthenon. Athens develops democracy. Athens becomes an empire. Sparta resents this. The Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404, pits Athens against Sparta. Athens loses. But the confidence that drives Athens' rise starts at Marathon. 192 dead give Athens the belief it can lead Greece. Miltiades understood something other generals did not. Persians were not invincible. They were professional, experienced, well supplied, but they had weaknesses. Cavalry needed open ground. Archers needed distance. Infantry could not match hoplite armor and spears in close combat. If you removed cavalry and closed distance fast, Persians lost their advantages. Miltiades removed cavalry by waiting until they were absent. He closed distance by charging. He turned Persian strength, their center, into a trap by thinning his own center and letting them push through while his wings circled behind. Every choice was calculated, every risk was measured, and it worked. Greeks tried to capture ships, managed to take 7 according to Herodotus. The rest escaped. Greeks stripped enemy dead of armor and weapons and dedicated them at Delphi and Olympia. They built monuments, they carved inscriptions. They made Marathon into legend before the sun set. Because they knew what this meant. They beat the empire that conquered Lydia, Babylon, Egypt, Thrace. They stood in a field and faced an army twice their size and killed them. That memory would carry Greece for decades. Athens built the navy that wins at Salamis. Athens claimed Marathon gave them the right to lead Greece. Sparta disagreed. 50 years later, the two cities fight each other. Marathon's legacy includes the Peloponnesian War. The confidence Athens gains at Marathon turns into arrogance, into empire, into overreach. Thucydides, writing about the Peloponnesian War, says Athens' downfall began with hubris, that hubris started at Marathon. But in 490, none of that is visible. In 490, Athens just survived. Datis sails away. Hippias never returns to Athens. Eritrea's population is deported to Mesopotamia, settled near Susa. Some descendants of Eretrians still lived there when Herodotus visited decades later. They spoke Greek, remembered their city, mourned their loss. Athens avoided that fate. One battle, one day. One decision to march to Marathon and fight, rather than wait behind walls. Marathon dead got cremated on the battlefield, bones collected, mound raised, names carved nearby. This was heroic burial, Homeric burial, like Achilles and Patroclus at Troy. Greeks deliberately invoked the Iliad. They made Marathon warriors into heroes, demigods, objects of cult worship. Pausanias says annual sacrifices were performed at the Soros. Inscriptions confirm Ephebes, young men training for military service, swore oaths there. The dead of Marathon became Athens' protecting spirits. He attacked. He won. Then he force-marched his exhausted army back to Athens to block the second landing. That march, 26 miles in armor after fighting for hours, is as impressive as the battle. Normal march rate for Greek hoplites is perhaps 3 kilometers per hour. 26 miles is 42 kilometers. That is 14 hours at standard pace. Herodotus says they arrived late afternoon, meaning they marched in maybe 8 hours. That is 5 kilometers per hour, carrying armor after battle over rough terrain. Extraordinary. That belief is worth more than 6,400 enemy corpses. The arrowheads, once plentiful, now scattered in museums. The topography, the marsh still there, the plain still visible, the mountain foothills where Greeks camped still identifiable. Everything confirms the story. Marathon happened. Greeks won, Persians lost. The details match. The timeline works. The numbers, while possibly exaggerated for Persian dead, are in the right range. 11,000 Greeks could plausibly kill 6,000 Persians in a battle where Persian line broke and fled through a marsh while being pursued. The Greek casualties, 192 Athenians, 11 Plataeans, are probably exact because names were recorded and families knew their dead. He never saw the Parthenon. He died disgraced, fined, wounded, less than a year after his greatest victory. But his tactical innovation, the double envelopment using strong flanks and weak center, entered military doctrine. Generals studied Marathon. Hannibal at Cannae, Germans at Tannenberg. Even modern maneuver warfare uses the principle: fix the enemy center, envelope with wings, destroy from multiple directions. Miltiades demonstrated it first, or at least demonstrated it clearly enough that historians recorded it and commanders learned from it. City. Myth is Pheidippides runs from Marathon to Athens, shouts victory and dies. The myth is better story, the reality is better battle. We remember both. The modern Marathon honors the myth, the Spartathlon honors the reality. The Soros stands on the plain honoring the dead. The bronze helmet sits in Olympia honoring the general. The name Marathon echoes through history honoring the battle, all of it real, all of it documented. All of it confirmed by archaeology and ancient sources that cross-reference and match. Greek triremes destroy the Persian fleet in narrow waters. Xerxes retreats. 479 Plataea. Greek hoplites crush the remaining Persian land force. Persia withdraws from Europe. Persia never invades Greece again. The sequence starts at Marathon. Without Marathon, maybe Greeks do not believe they can resist. Without Marathon, maybe Athens does not build the fleet. Without Marathon, maybe Thermopylae does not happen because Greeks surrender. Marathon is the proof that empires can lose. Underneath, at 3 meters depth, their bones still rest. The vases, stays found are in museums. The bronze helmet is in Olympia. The victory column fragments are in the Archaeological Museum of Marathon. The Persian grave, unmarked, is known from Eschenberg's report, but no monument stands over it. Greeks honored their dead. Persians were buried and forgotten. Every year for 400 years, Athens performed rites at the Soros. Every year, Ephebes swore oaths. Every year, Athenians sacrificed 500 goats to Artemis Agraterra, thanking her for the victory. The battle entered the civic calendar. It became part of Athenian identity. To be Athenian meant to be descended from the men who fought at Marathon. The 192 dead were heroes, demigods, protectors. Prayers were offered. Rituals performed. Marathon was not just a battle, it was a founding myth. It was proof Athens mattered. It was evidence Athens could lead Greece. It was justification for Athens' empire. All from one day in 490. The 192 names were still carved. The rituals continued. Because Marathon was not about empire or power. It was about free men choosing to fight rather than submit. It was about citizens defending their land. It was about Greeks proving they could beat Persians. That memory survived Athens' defeat. It survived Macedon's conquest. It survived Roman occupation. It survived Byzantine rule. It survived Ottoman rule. The Soros stood through all of it. Travelers visited. Historians recorded. The memory passed down. And in 1896, when Greece hosted the first modern Olympics, they ran a race from Marathon to Athens, honoring the myth, honoring the battle, honoring the memory. The bronze helmet in Olympia is his offering. The names of the 192 dead are his companions. The tactical doctrine of double envelopment is his legacy. And the confidence that carried Athens through the 5th century, the belief that Greeks could fight empires and win, the idea that free citizens fighting for their own land were stronger than subject soldiers fighting for a king, all of that starts with Miltiades ordering the charge on September 12th, 490 BCE. One moment, one decision, one charge across a plain that changed history. Some remains ended up in the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. Some were left in a field near Marathon where a house now stands. The distribution of Marathon's dead across museums and storage sites mirrors how empires treat conquered lands, taking what they want, leaving the rest. But the bones confirm the battle. Real men died at Marathon. Their remains prove it. The Persian mass grave found by Eschenberg in 1885 also confirms the battle. Hundreds of bodies, buried without ceremony, without monument, in a hurry. Greeks buried enemy dead as an act of piety, unusual since Greeks normally left corpses, or Persians exposed theirs. That Greeks buried Persians at all shows respect, or at least acknowledgement. These were worthy enemies who fought hard and lost. They deserved earth, even if they did not deserve monuments. The grave's existence proves the casualty numbers are roughly accurate. 6,400 might be inflated, but hundreds certainly died. The mass grave matches the story. Secunda walks the terrain and confirms distances, sightlines, and tactical feasibility. The Soros stands where ancient sources say it stands. The plain matches ancient descriptions. The chronology matches the lunar calendar. September 12th, 490 BCE. Full moon 6 days later. Spartans arrive after full moon. Everything fits. Marathon happened. The Greeks won. The Persians lost. And the memory, carved in stone, built in earth, dedicated in bronze, passed through generations, survived to become legend. The pit that provided the dirt would have been massive, 50 meters diameter, 3 meters deep. That pit was never found, or if found, not recorded. But logic says it existed. You cannot raise a mound without a pit. Greeks honored their dead by elevating them, by making them visible, by ensuring Marathon's heroes stood above the plain where they died. The mound is intentional. The size is intentional. The location is intentional. Greeks wanted the Soros to dominate the plain, to be the first thing travelers saw, to announce that here free men fought an empire and won. The race is ritual. The Soros is shrine. The memory is alive. Miltiades charged across this plain with 10,000 Athenians and 1,000 Plataeans. The Persians broke. The empire learned Greeks do not kneel. The West, whatever that means, traces its survival to this moment. John Stuart Mill thought so. Modern historians debate it, but no one denies Marathon mattered. The battle was real. The victory was real. The Soros is real. And the lesson, that free men fighting for their land can beat empires fighting for conquest, resonates across centuries. Marathon, September 12th, 490 BCE, 192 dead, 6,400 enemy killed, 26 miles marched in 8 hours, Persia retreating, Greece surviving. That is the truth. That is what happened. That is what the dirt and bone and bronze prove.